Julia Gillard in charge and Labor back in the lead.
Saturday morning and down to business. Some long hours in the office to come.
World leaders play down their stimulus split. The Demons batter the Bulldogs at North Hobart. And Leighton Hewitt battles into the fourth round. Good evening, welcome to ABC News. I'm Barbara Cox. Labor was hoping for a new start and it may just have it. Government MPs woke to read of a big jump in the polls, a positive early sign for Australia's first female Prime Minister. But Julia Gillard seemed oblivious to the news while meeting military top brass this morning. And the opposition is unfazed, saying the bounce was predictable. More from political reporter Hayden Cooper. The head of the Sea Shepherd anti-whaling group, Paul Watson, has been put on an international wanted list at the request of Japan. Interpol has issued a blue notice on the captain of the Steve Irwin for allegedly conspiring to harass whaling ships in Antarctica earlier this year. Police from around the world will be asked for information on Watson's whereabouts and activities, but not for his arrest. Paul Watson says he isn't concerned.
They needn't have wasted their time. They could have just followed our website. One thing that it does mean to me is that we're certainly getting to them. We cut their kill quotas in half, and they're really desperate that we not go back down there this year. But I can tell them where I will certainly be in December, and it'll be back down in the Southern Ocean harassing them again.
The Greens leader has challenged the new Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, to act.
Why Interpol isn't hunting down the captain of the whaling fleet instead of Captain Watson, I don't know, except that Canberra hasn't asked for it.
Another Sea Shepherd member, Peter Bethune, is on trial in Tokyo for trespassing on a whaling ship. The bodies of 11 people killed in a plane crash in West Africa last week have been recovered. The aircraft was carrying 6 board members of the West Australian-based company Sundance Resources when it crashed in thick jungle last weekend. The wreckage was found several days later in Congo. A team has been working around the clock at Sundance headquarters in Perth to help coordinate the recovery effort. The bodies have been transported to a secure facility in Congo's capital, 800 kilometres from the crash site, and family members have been notified.
They get a sense of relief that this event has occurred, that we have them now back in Brazzaville.
The bodies will be formally identified before being returned home. The bodies of 3 Australian commandos who were killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan are now back on home soil. Relatives and colleagues of Privates Tim Applin, Ben Chuck and Scott Palmer met the bodies this afternoon at Richmond Air Base, west of Sydney.
It's a satisfying thing, but of course it's a terribly traumatic event, especially for the close family.
The bodies were given a police escort through town. The commandos were killed on Monday when a US helicopter crashed on the way to a mission in Kandahar. A Sydney charity has scrapped plans to manufacture fundraising products in China because of concerns about child exploitation. The Ted Noffs Foundation says every Chinese factory it visited on a recent trip used child labour or had sweatshop conditions. George Roberts reports. To the weather now, it's been mostly fine today, just a few showers in the west and far south. The top temperatures were a little below average. Several centres reached the highest of 13 degrees, including Scamander, Bridport and Launceston. Hobart got to 12 in most districts. Before we go a look at the day's main stories, the federal opposition says Labor's bounce in the opinion polls won't last. AC Nielsen has reported a surge in ALP support since the elevation of Julia Gillard. The leaders of the world's richest economies have gathered in Canada to find ways to secure the global economic recovery. And an International Whaling Commission meeting's wrapped up with more controversy, giving Greenland the right to hunt humpback whales. And that's all the news for now. We'll leave you with some fancy footwork at the National Capital Dance Sport Championships in Canberra this weekend. Good night. And good evening. Barbara Cox continuing from Hobart. Power price rises are coming, and quicker than you think. Increases for homes and small businesses approved today come into force in just a week, and further price jumps aren't far behind. 3 Hobart men have avoided jail for attacking 2 Chinese university students who resisted a robbery. Brodie Cockshut, Jared Broadby and Sean Woolley received an 8-month suspended prison sentence for snatching the handbag of one of the female students in Sandy Bay last June. When she resisted, the Bridgewater trio dragged her along the ground for about 5 metres until the bag broke and punched her friend who tried to intervene. Cockshut and Woolley were convicted of a similar attack against a Singapore student earlier in the year. Also before the Supreme Court today, Fiona Garth pleaded guilty to assaulting 4-year-old Liam Osborne, who died while she was babysitting him last June. The 37-year-old was originally charged with the boy's murder, but has now admitted striking him to the body. The top US general in Afghanistan has been relieved of his command. General Stanley McChrystal was dismissed by the president over a magazine interview that mocked Barack Obama's administration. And that's the news for now. Good night.
The Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, this is ABC News. I'm Barbara Cox. She promised to get straight to work, and Julia Gillard has delivered. The Prime Minister spent her first full day in office talking to world leaders and charting a new course for her cabinet. She's now working on reshaping the front bench. But day one wasn't all bouquets and well wishes. The Prime Minister's faced a barrage of questions over the plotting that toppled Kevin Rudd. Here's Chief Political Correspondent Mark Simpkin. The bodies of 3 Australian commandos who were killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan are making their final journey home. They've been farewelled in a ramp ceremony at Tarin Kowt. The Socceroos have packed up after Australia's early exit from the World Cup, but at least they're in good company. The defending champions, Italy, are among some quality teams also heading home. The ABC's Peter Wilkins reports from Johannesburg. After 11 hours, 183 games and 215 aces, the longest match in tennis history is over, and it seemed unfair that someone had to lose. American John Isner celebrated like he'd won the tournament when he took the 5th set 70 games to 68. He beat Frenchman Nicolas Mahut in a match played over 3 days. Here's Duncan Huntsdale.
The Queen.
And lastly, tonight a review of the main stories. The new Prime Minister's got straight down to work, holding her first cabinet meeting, but there's no news yet of a ministerial reshuffle. The state government has been warned it could face more legal claims from prisoners after the Ombudsman found a maximum security unit at Risdon Prison doesn't meet human rights standards. And a young Victorian gambling addict has admitted stealing more than $750,000 from Tote, Tasmania. And that's the latest from the newsroom. You can keep in touch with ABC Online and hourly bulletins on ABC Radio. Stay with us now, though, for a special edition of the 7:30 report. Good night.